We are live coming at you, Common Sense Ohio. Check us out, commonsenseohioshow.com. Here come the judge. There go the judge out the back door, as it turns out. And, you know, this Christmas, maybe you can buy yourself buy your son a truck for Christmas. Battery operated $20,000 truck. We'll get to that. Toledo makes it number one. How and why, we'll find out, and probably still won't understand it. And then it is 14.26 weeks, 0.274 years. What does that equal? 100 days of Donald Trump in the White House. So, Common Sense Ohio Show brought to you by Harper Plus Accounting. We got a new spot from Harper Plus. We're going to see. We always talk about Harper Plus, but now we're going to really show you Harper Plus. Dan, see if you can tee it up, and we got a new spot, highly produced Harper Plus spot.
Are you an entrepreneur who doesn't know when to pick up the phone or get out the keyboard to contact your CPA?
A lot of people are like that. And one of those things that you have to figure out when there's the right time to do that is when you feel like you don't know what's going on. How much money am I making? How do I pay my taxes? I'm running my business out of my checkbook and I have no clue what's going on. I don't know if my employees are making me money. I don't know if my products are making money. I don't know which way I'm going. I'm upside down. I can't concentrate or can't think about anything other than where the heck am I, instead of thinking, how do I grow and continue on my business? That's when you should call.
So if you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to have a tax question in regards to that, drop it in the comments and we'll try to get back to you.
Good. All right,
God, we're so professional.
Yeah, look at
Holy
imagine
cow.
Anyway, so yeah, we got our own spot.
Nice.
I mean, look, if you can endure that, you're going to be able to endure this show. I promise you. I promise you.
And you can have an ad like that too on our show.
Yeah, you want to be a sponsor? You want to sponsor,
Sure.
say, for instance, like This Day in History? Give us a shout. CommonSenseOhioShow.com. Check us out. We'll get your business. You have a spot. We'll even help you do it. It's easy. It's fun.
Yeah.
Everybody's doing it. Trust me, it's the cool thing to do. So This Day in History, there was a lot of choices, believe it or not, in This Day of History, like the fall of Saigon.
Yeah.
Lots of them. But I would rather talk about the experiment of a nation. The nation itself, in fact, was an experiment, said George Washington on his inauguration day on April 30, 1789, stressed, of course, the Bill of Rights, the Constitution, humbly stood there in his brown suit and overcoat with his battle sword, of course.
Wow.
And he
Brown suit like Obama.
Apparently, I guess. But no, I mean, that's when the experiment started. And
Yeah.
it sort of interesting that he called it an experiment, and we still think of it as somewhat of an experiment. The other thing, I usually don't only talk about one fact, but I also want to talk about something else. The Louisiana Purchase, I think, was finalized this day in history. And that's fascinating to me because Thomas Jefferson, who was like one of these guys that says, no, the government can't just do things and the president can't just do it. He did it.
Yeah.
He bought Louisiana.
But it's some kind of a unbelievable, alien topic to discuss buying Greenland. We bought a shit ton of real estate as a country.
Well, the closing on that apparently was
we bought Alaska,
1803.
Twice.
Right.
United States and Napoleonic France completed negotiations for Louisiana Purchase, a massive land sale
Right.
that basically doubled our size of our country.
Yeah.
And
so those people were insane.
They were nuts.
They were dictators that did that. They were orange Hitlers.
The student of history, it tends to repeat itself when you look at it, and you can always find parallels and draw. And that's why they say study. If you don't study history, you're doomed to repeat it. But I think even if you do study it, you are also doomed to repeat it. You just understand that you're going to repeat it.
Yeah.
Well, and sometimes repeating it is not a bad thing because something happened good in history to repeat.
Or to claim that something that's happening in history is going to be catastrophic to the world. And you realize you look back, and even in our own short history, you find things that are sort of similar that happened in history that we've survived. So we will survive this, I promise.
Yeah.
I think.
Absolutely.
Or shall we promise? Anyway, the lead story, here come the judge, the old laugh-in. We're aging ourselves. I mean, that is at the beginning of my TV tenure. Laugh-in. I mean,
that's ancient.
That's really
history.
before my time, but I know about it, and I happen to know about it, Norm, because I own a Pontiac GTO. And those who know what anything about Pontiac GTOs, the judge is like the holy grail of a Pontiac GTO.
They are, man.
A stripped-down judge cost like $2,000 or $2,800 back in the day. It's worth like $2.8 million now. It's probably an exaggeration, but not much. I mean, if you get a 72 judge, there was like 9 convertibles made, I think, and you still have one of those. That's worth some money.
Yeah. Yeah, Brett looked it up. Flip Wilson.
Old Flip Wilson.
Yeah, did that on Laughing.
Here come the judge. Here come the great stuff.
It was good stuff, man.
But the reason we're talking about that, Norm, obviously we've got judges going out the back door, which is sort of a fascinating topic.
Well, this guy, Judge Cano in New Mexico, a federal district court judge, he and his wife had a Tren de Allegra guy. Not Allegra, that would be a pharmaceutical, but a Tren de Allegra guy living in a casita, which I think is fancy name for a shed in their backyard in New Mexico. And he was a gang member. They supplied him with guns so he could go target shooting. I mean, it was outrageous behavior on this guy's part. And so he got raided by Pam Bondi and the FBI and ICE, and he's been charged, arrested and charged and suspended. And similarly, not exactly the same fact pattern, but up in Wisconsin, a state judge for the state of Wisconsin ushered, a guy was brought in for assault and, it was a bunch of violent charges.
It was a criminal case. Assault and some other stuff in his courtroom. And ICE wanted him.
Battery, like it was domestic violence kind of stuff. And he was brought in for, I don't know, an arraignment, a trial. I don't know what it was. And the judge, the Wisconsin judge, got the word that the feds were going to arrest him right after the trial. Or right after the hearing. So after the hearing, she opens up the door to the back of the courthouse, and the lawyer and the defendant were allowed to leave via the back door. And then there was a street chase down the sidewalk with the FBI in hot pursuit of this guy, which exposed everybody to more danger. And obviously it was a complete dereliction of her duty under the law. And she has been suspended by the Wisconsin Supreme Court, which is not, just so you know, which is not a conservative court. So even they have recognized what she did was outrageous.
This is troubling on all levels, right? And let me just give you my experience practicing law in front of judges. If I would have done something similar. So for instance, as a lawyer, there's been some disciplinary hearings and some other decisions about what happens when I misinform a court. So if the judge, even if I stand silent and let erroneous assumptions being made.
Yeah.
Like the case I'm talking about, I have a DUI client, and let's say I'm standing in front of the judge and the prosecutor says, "Judge, this is a first offense DUI, therefore first offense mandatory minimum penalties apply." And I, as the attorney for the client, know that that's not accurate.
Yeah.
I know that it's actually the second offense or maybe even the third offense. I have an affirmative duty, ethically speaking anyway, to speak up and fix that.
Yeah. But Steve, just real quick, my understanding from my old days in law school is you are an officer of the court.
I'm an officer of the court, right. Now that's not even half as bad as what this judge did. So let's say that my client brings in, if I assist my client in committing a crime, then I'm a criminal, right? You know, it's a crime.
Like you held dirty money or something.
Like if I hold dirty money, or if the client gives me the proceeds of a robbery, like you're talking about, and I help them hide it or whatever. And you know, clients call me all the time and say, "Look, what can I do? How is it?" And I always have the same advice. Look, I can help you not commit a crime, but I can't help you commit a crime.
Yeah,
and you know, it's such an obvious but good distinction. And what this judge did is basically help the client commit a crime.
This is a Wisconsin judge?
The Wisconsin judge, right? So the guy had warrants, and these could be warrants for ICE, for being an illegal immigrant. They could be this happens all the time. I have clients waiting in a court. So this is maybe even a better example. I show up in court with a client who's got a warrant on a different felony. Let's say, for instance, that I'm standing in municipal court conducting an arraignment or some procedural hearing with my client who I know has felony warrants. And I say, "Look, bub, I found out you got felony warrants. Why don't you follow me out the side door? We'll get you out of here." Even though we know the police are out there with handcuffs, ready to take you over to felony court.
Keys are in the ignition.
I'm going to take you out of here. Yeah. I got you. I got you. I'm the getaway driver in a crime.
Yes,
no kidding.
That's what this judge did.
Yeah.
And even the people on the left are now they're talking like Thoreau type protest. But look, this is not. This is different. These are sworn officers of the court. These people took an oath to follow the law. Now you don't have to agree with the law to follow it. And Sean Hannon, God rest his soul. He used to work for me. He was an Army guy who was killed. Yeah. And he always, I remember asking him in the military, it's like, because I was reading a bunch of World War II history at the time, and these guys they had a term for officers who were, they called it chicken shit. Officers who were just like needly nitpickers, assholes.
Right. Yeah.
And he said, look, you respect the rank, not the man.
Yeah.
You respect the law,
of course.
Even if you don't agree with it.
Absolutely.
And and that's what this judge did not do. They did not respect the law.
So the left has been trying to portray this as like a Dred Scott situation, like you're doing something higher order,
social justice,
morality.
Right.
No. Come on.
No, this is not getting arrested. This is not Thoreau getting arrested.
This is not Dred Scott. This is not an escaped slave. This is an illegal immigrant who is committed or is being alleged to have committed violent acts, and ICE is there to arrest him. And
it's not.
They have the right to do that.
It's not a brown shirt law. The law was in place before the enforcement.
Oh yeah.
So it's not an ex post facto setting, and so it's not like the judge saying, "Look, you got these henchmen out there ready to enforce some unconstitutional law that they're making up as we go. So I'm going to help you not do that." Then you might have some argument, but this is a law that was in place. They're in the country unlawfully. There is no dispute about it.
Yeah.
And I guess the ICE agents or the federal agents, I don't know if they were ICE or not, but they had followed I think we talked about this a few weeks ago.
Some were at least FBI.
There was a protocol that had been put in place, like you can't just arrest people in a courtroom because that's disturbing things. And there's some sense to that.
Sure.
So they had followed all the protocol. They had notified all the right people.
Yeah.
And by the very notification, by the very protocol that they followed, this judge knew it was coming and then helped them escape. This is.
And do you know why?
These are felonies.
And
I don't think they only got charged with obstruction, but this is a felony.
Well, Steve knows why. Brett knows why. But for our viewers and listeners, the reason that they had to try to arrest him, at the hearing, right after the hearing, is because Wisconsin, being a shelter state, they do not allow their local police to coordinate with ICE. They actually have a law preventing it. Like here in Columbus, we had the FOP in here. They're not allowed to contact ICE, the police officer, right? It's not allowed to contact ICE and say, hey, I have one of your people here. So Wisconsin, the whole state's like that. And so rather than arresting him in the police station, right, where they know he's disarmed, they know he could even be cuffed before they take him, and everybody's much safer, they're forced to go to things like this court hearing. And that's where the feds have to try to make the arrest, because they're not allowed under Wisconsin current policy to go to the police station, which already had him arrested. That's how crazy this whole thing is that you're not allowed to coordinate between the feds and the state. And, some states do allow that and some states don't.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's actually introduces a dangerous element. Like, when the FBI is chasing this guy out the courthouse, I mean, they at that point don't know if he's armed or not. They don't. He could run into traffic. They may have to run into traffic. It's all chaotic.
Look, you bring up a great point. So it's not just that this judge helped the guy evade ICE. The judge created a situation later that the system is designed to prevent. We don't want like Dirty Harry shootouts in the middle of the road. And this is, and think about what it's encouraging too. Like, and I take note, look, I do have a position on it, but I can make this point. I can make this case without taking a position on the immigration policies of Donald Trump. I don't care. They are in place and it is what it is. But the judge still has to follow the law, like it or not. You have to do that. You cannot you cannot just rewrite this per your own political bent. And the people are applauding this and saying, rah, 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 rah.
It's like the Luigi Mangione thing.
If you permit this, where does it stop?
Well, apparently you can murder people if you don't like them.
Well, I mean, look, that's not true. But the
Luigi fans say
the Luigi fans say
their mentality.
But Luigi's also getting prosecuted. So look, I mean, we got to at least give that a fair assessment. It's not like he's getting away with it.
Yeah.
But
but this idea that you, like, if you feel morally superior, that you're above the law. I saw this mantra of Democrats, like, it was like 2 minutes long, of people from Pelosi to Hillary Clinton saying no one is above the law. And of course, they're saying that about Trump.
Yeah, of course, right.
Well, what about these judges? The one in New Mexico, the one in Wisconsin. This
is reprehensible in every way to me. The judge has to follow law, and I've had this happen where the judge will interpret a law differently than I think.
Sure,
and almost to the point where I'm like, listen, you're close.
Yeah, right.
You're close.
Yeah,
but at least we have an argument.
Yeah.
And
right.
Fair enough.
And, you'll appeal it if you need to.
I'll appeal it.
Yeah, man.
And I'll go to jail and be held. I mean, that's never happened to me. But, lawyers will have this kind of, defense lawyers are notorious for this, have this kind of protest. In fact, in the gang case down in Atlanta last summer, maybe, one of the lawyers went to jail because the judge was saying, you have to tell me how you learned about how I, the judge, found out this information that I shouldn't have found out without you knowing. I mean, it's circular. And the lawyer says, look, I'm not telling you that. The judge says, fine, go to jail.
Yeah.
And contempt. Fair enough. But that's the process working.
That's right.
So this judge could say, listen, Mr. Defendant, I don't agree with this, but there are ICE officers out there. Deputies, escort him out, and we'll do this peacefully. And if I have a legal basis to challenge this, I will be on your side, Mr. Defendant, but I don't right now.
Yeah.
You have to go through this.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Make a speaking objection about it. Make a record about it.
Yeah.
Use your platform, if you will. And I might
That's
even
fine.
have some beef with that, but at least it's not a crime.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And no one gets endangered because of the situation.
Yep. And there's no danger. It's done peacefully. Right. And you're telling the people, I don't agree with this law, but the law is important and we have to follow it.
Right.
And that's what it is. And, by not doing that, this judge has encouraged, I think you made a good point, the Mangione thing. They've encouraged such behavior.
Yeah.
It's okay to commit. Look, I have another show called Lawyer Talk. Check it out, lawyertalkpodcast.com. But I had a comment, and Brett was part of this. And somebody was sort of like chastising me a little bit because I said, look, I think I was talking about the factual guilt of Mangione.
Yeah, he's on camera.
And
Jesus.
And this commenter said something to the effect that I can't believe this. I'm turning you off because, even as lawyers, you don't know innocent until proven guilty. I can make a factual distinction or a very logical distinction.
Right.
I have plenty of clients who are guilty as the day is long.
Right.
And unlike that commenter, I stand up with them in a courtroom and defend them anyway.
That is the process. Right. You are doing your duty. And they deserve a vigorous defense, even if they're flat guilty.
Now, let me give you the other side. A couple of weeks ago, I was out in one of the counties out east defending somebody who was charged with a heinous crime, who did not, and I would say it out loud, in my opinion, did not get a fair trial. And the social comments were outrageous.
I'm sure.
Outrageous.
Yeah.
Hang this guy, string him up. Right. Even deputies at the jail were on their social media going after this guy.
Yeah.
And so I invite all the commenters, have it both ways, but not just, you can't have it one way. You got to have it both ways. I make a very, very bright line distinction between whether I think somebody's guilty and whether I will defend them.
Yeah.
And that's disturbing, I guess, kind of the rabbit hole here, but that's disturbing that you have the police there at the court doing posting on social about their thoughts on a case.
Well,
that's bothersome.
Very bothersome.
And they're allowed to have an opinion. I'm not saying they're not, but
it was a guard at a jail. It was a corrections officer at the local jail. Now, I will say this, and if they're listening, then maybe they are. Yeah, we're so widespread, worldwide. Yeah. The jail or the courtroom deputies, phenomenal to work with.
Well, they
Kept
know
the peace,
better.
Made if they had an opinion, did not voice it. No. They treated me with the utmost respect. Right. They treated the other side with the utmost respect. I tip my hat that I'm not even wearing to you. But you're making a good point. It's like if the government entities are compromised,
that's right.
What do we have? We have a compromised judge. And I don't have a problem with somebody saying, "Look, I don't agree with this law."
Yeah.
But I have to enforce it.
Yeah.
Right.
Fair enough.
It's okay.
Yeah.
It's all right.
I do it every day.
She is also a politician who's elected as a judge. And I don't have any problem with her making a little side bench speech like that. Go ahead, speak your mind.
Right.
Whatever.
I may disagree and I might say, what a bunch of nonsense.
Because it's after the hearing.
But
her hearing's over and now she wants to make a little comment about, let's have some order here in the court. Let's peacefully transition you to the custody of
Right.
the federal.
I don't agree with this, but this is the state of the law.
Yeah.
I encourage all my voters, the constituents out there,
Right.
whoever you are,
Right.
change it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean,
Change
you
it.
already have this policy of asylum. So, the local police are not allowed to coordinate with the feds. And this is the only way the feds can get the guy.
Right. And look, you hear this term thrown, I think, way too loosely, threat to democracy.
Oh, come on. Yeah.
The threat to democracy is not the feds waiting out there to make this arrest. It's the judge not following the law and using the democratic process she can use her platform to change the law if that's what she wants.
Yeah.
Or
Right.
try to.
Sure.
But not through her own edict.
No.
Not through her own edict.
Right.
So, you know what? I mean, and once that breaks down, where does it end? I mean, we've talked about this before. It's like our founders, like there's certain things we never really had to worry about. And now we're worrying about them on both sides.
Right. It's crazy.
We can't do things for the cause just because.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah.
Anyway, that's the threat to
Yeah.
democracy.
Yeah.
That's my
It sure is.
That's my soapbox. I'm off it, hopefully, for the rest of the hour.
Well, you previewed an interesting non-political story, I think so interesting about consumer tendencies and where I think the market is. As we all know, the cost of brand new trucks is just outrageous.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's crazy. Especially the EV ones. I think that, for example, the Hummer SUV EV, that thing weighs over 5 tons.
So we're talking like 14,000 pounds or 12,000 pounds.
Something. It's
Wow.
so outrageous. Like you pull that in your driveway, it's probably going to crack the concrete.
You don't have your.
I mean,
You're probably right about that.
That's
Right.
a good
that's
point.
crazy.
That's a good point.
And what's
I
it
hadn't
doing to
thought
the
about
roads?
Oh God,
Yeah.
yeah. So we're all paying for that. So at any rate, this company that Jeff Bezos of Amazon fame has been backing, although this truck is not on Amazon for sale yet, but they're like Hyundais. You can buy a Hyundai on Amazon, like right on it. You go on Amazon, you can buy a Hyundai and they'll deliver it to your house. This truck, they probably will do it. It's called the Slate, or the name of the company is Slate, like, chalkboard slate. And it's a little mini pickup. It's 2 feet shorter than a Ford Ranger, for example. Has a very small open bed, although they have a cap for it if you want it enclosed. It's $20,000 if you can get the EV credit that currently still exists, but may go away.
So that's like a toy. I mean,
It's a toy.
That's like a Polaris.
Yeah,
Ranger.
it's a toy,
Right.
and it has no radio, no speakers. There's no dashboard
What do
controls.
you do with it?
Yep, I think what it'll be used for is urban deliveries, like pizza
Yeah.
plate.
From what I understand, you buy it and it's the add-ons. It's not even painted. It's
one
they
color.
wrap it. They wrap
Slate.
it. Yeah.
Well,
but
gray.
you can wrap.
Well,
it.
that's
you
like,
can wrap it.
That's like the Model T, man.
Yeah,
You can
Yeah.
have any color you want as long as it's black.
that's
Right.
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 That's right.
Right.
So it's super basic steel wheels,
Yeah.
and the idea is, yes, you can accessorize the hell out of it,
Yeah.
but the base model is $20,000
Right.
with the EV credit, $27,000 if you don't
How
qualify.
far does it go? What are they advertising?
150 miles.
Yeah, for
on
the
a
basic,
charge.
and then you can upgrade
upgrade.
to another battery
Yeah.
level to maybe 200 miles.
No,
It's definitely city grade.
Yeah,
it's
I
a
got
city
a-
grade
for
truck.
buzzing around the city.
It is.
I got
Yeah.
a buddy looking at one of the Hummers, and it's an incredible looking thing.
Yes.
And if it's as advertised, I mean, wow.
Yeah.
But you're talking $100,000.
I know.
Oh,
120,
easy.
I think.
Yeah, easy. And
Yep.
the Jeep Wagoneer or Grand Wagoneer we talked
Mhm.
about, that's $100,000.
Yeah.
The new
It's crazy.
Lincoln Navigator, it's $100,000.
Well, even the gas ones are $100,000. I mean, they're
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
right.
The hybrids and the diesels, all of them.
And
they're
did you
crazy?
And did you see Slate? They're looking to make this in Indiana, right?
They make it in Michigan.
Michigan. Okay,
Yeah.
I thought something. It was
Yeah,
Indiana
it's made
too.
in
so-
Michigan,
okay,
and
okay.
it's designed using, I'm sure, former Big Three
Mhm.
engineers. I'm sure they hired, people who
Yeah.
got laid off.
It reminded me. This is back in the 70s. I remember Dad one time ordering a car that wasn't on the lot. Maybe lots at that time just didn't have a lot of cars in inventory. But I remember him ordering one.
Yeah.
Not to specs that was just like crazy specs.
Yeah.
But they just didn't have certain models on the lot, and we had to wait 2 or 3 weeks, and then
yeah, that
the
still
car's
happens.
delivered. Yeah,
That still happens
to a
sometimes.
certain degree. But this reminded me of that going,
Yeah.
we're going back to that. You order the model you
order
want,
the model, yeah.
and the upgrade you want.
Wind up windows, on this thing.
Now, I was told, you probably know this, Norm. I was told the old ordering cars, because in muscle cars, we say, well, I ordered it with this, and this, and this. It's originally factory ordered like this.
Yeah.
And I was told that you're not really ordering it. You're just reserving one that's built that way. They're not making it custom.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong. And maybe there was a time they did make them custom. I don't know.
Wow.
And then they get to the dealers, and the dealers had extra access. That's how they had like the Saline Mustang or the Camaro. What was the Camaro?
Saline was a Mustang.
Yeah, but what was the Camaro version of that? The
Z28?
No.
Copo Camaros?
Yeah.
Central Office Processing.
It was one of the, something
order,
like that. Yeah, like a
COPO.
Yeah, or the Shelby. You could like those were accessorized later.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Interesting.
This has nothing to do with anything.
No. But it's
and we could be
it's
quite
cars. It's
we
guys
could be
and cars.
quite wrong, but we're going to say it anyway.
Check us out. Right? Check us out. So then maybe because it's made in Michigan, Toledo is number one.
Ooh. Nice transition. The only thing I want to say about this Slate company is there is a big company in India called Mahindra, and they make tractors and all kinds of stuff. And I have been waiting for somebody like Kia or Mahindra or somebody to make a mini pickup like this. And I'm so glad if it's going to be made in Michigan.
Yeah, well, we made in Michigan. Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Toledo. So the Wall Street Journal came out yesterday with its annual list of the 200 major markets and where they rank in a weird combination of factors: median home price, some sort of scaling based on increased desirability, and somewhat temperate weather, which you could argue about Toledo having that. But at any rate, they ranked Toledo as number one of all the cities in America for basically being a good bargain place to buy a house. The median price in Toledo being $235,000. Houses on average last 37 days on the market. And prices in Toledo have gone up 18% over the last year. So it's indicating some sort of trend of people, seizing opportunities in a otherwise kind of a depressed, economically city of 600,000 people. Toledo being a fairly large city, actually,
and it has a university tied to it.
Yes,
and usually university towns have a draw because
and they have
of
the
what
mud hens.
I got to tell you, it just doesn't add up. Something's not adding up.
It is
something's not adding
graft
up.
and corruption, Steve says.
Yeah, something's not adding up. My son goes to Bowling Green. I had a case in the last couple of years up in Toledo, and look, kudos to the federal court up there. That was treated very well. The judges were great. The prosecutors, the U.S. attorneys were great to work with. I mean, it was a good experience. But as I drove through Toledo, it didn't look like a thriving metropolis.
No.
Right. And
it's struggling for sure.
Yeah. So I wonder, and I heard somewhere recently that Bowling Green was losing one of their, I forget what the industry was, but something was, there was an industry, some big company was leaving Wood County.
Not good. That's
it wasn't good
because there's not a lot up there, man.
There's not a lot up there. So look, I mean, maybe it's just because you can get a good bargain.
I think that's all the other stuff. I think that's a bunch of it.
There's some marketing going on too.
The criteria is that you can buy a cheap house. Well, there's a reason you can buy a cheap house.
That's right.
And if the housing is more expensive, it doesn't always correlate. Like for instance, I don't think that living in the most expensive place in the country necessarily garners you all the best things.
Oh no, right? Yeah.
But living in the cheapest part of the country is also the same.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the middle, maybe it's true.
Yeah,
that, look, there's a level where it costs more to live here, but you can make more to live here, and it sort of equals out. I don't know if that's the case in Toledo or not.
Yeah, they had a really deluxe harbor district going on about 25 years ago, and it's gone now. And which is a shame. It was kind of like the Cleveland Flats area, like a party.
I drove through there, sort of half lost, not too long ago, and it was weird.
It is weird, right? Like out of nowhere, like you're ghetto. All of a sudden, wow,
Yeah.
This looks like spring break in Fort Lauderdale, and then ghetto.
Yeah.
So
But look, I mean, I hope Toledo's turning around.
Yeah.
I think, we had some other cities on there too, which is
Yes.
interesting. And they all don't seem like the thriving metropolises in Ohio.
So I have the median.
Metropolises.
Yeah, I do have the median home price in Dayton. It's $240. They're in the top 20. Wall Street. So is Youngstown. $185,000 is the median. In Canton, Ohio, Massillon area, $240,000 median.
Dayton's always been a head scratcher for me because Dayton is so well placed in the state. If you think about it.
Yes.
Well, it was auto
It's
parts.
really, really close to Cincinnati, really close to
NCR,
Columbus.
National Cash, Lexus.
Used to be
Yeah.
auto parts.
Yellow Springs, they've got 75, 70.
Yes.
They are
great.
like Columbus, set up really well.
It's a great
for
drug corridor, right from Michigan straight down to
Pretty decent,
Straight down to
pretty decent airport.
Yeah.
A lot of people from Columbus, to get a better deal, will drive to Dayton and fly out.
Yeah, exactly.
And
it's always interesting how that city just
Air Force Base.
keep the Air Force Base.
Holy cow.
For the time
not-
being.
if you haven't gone to the Air Force Base Museum, it's awesome.
Oh my
Yeah, it's great.
gosh,
And it's
yes.
free.
Right.
That's a
Right,
2 day.
Pat.
That's a 2 day gig.
That's
At
a
least.
2-day. Yeah.
Seriously.
So-
That- if you want to take your time, it's going to take 2 days.
And it's
to go
close
through
to
that.
Cincinnati, Dayton.
Right.
So that, like, if you want to go see the Reds or the Bengals or whatever, you can see pro sports
Right.
50 miles
As
away.
the locals
know.
might say, it's great in Dayton. So I had a case out there recently, and I went to the Pine Club, a restaurant afterwards, to sort of celebrate being done with it. Classic old school steakhouse.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That
I had
nice.
a client that talked about that
And-
once.
and-
Yeah.
Is that in that hip district?
It's in sort of near the you go past the hospital, and then it's in like this sort of nice revitalized district, maybe
Yeah.
close to the university, I think.
Yeah, that
but,
is a beautiful area.
It was neat, and it's old school, man. It's like
Right.
old school mobster, and right near our booth,
Mobster.
right near our booth was a little plaque where George H. Bush, I think, sat and had dinner at one point
Okay.
there. But don't bring your American Express. Don't even bring your Visa. Don't bring your Discover. Don't bring anything but cash, because they do not take anything but cash. Now, apparently you can sign up online and get an account.
Okay.
I don't know what that's all about. I
Yeah.
didn't do that. I brought cash.
Yeah.
But it is, you bring your cash.
And
Right.
it has been that way all the time, or they just transitioned into that knowing what
I
charges
happen
are going on?
to,
That's
when I
interesting.
was trying to make reservations, don't do that because they don't have that either. You show up and you get served when it's your time. So it's
Well,
sort of
not far from Dayton is South Lebanon, Ohio, and you can go to the Lamb,
Mm.
which originally George Washington had a meal at. So they probably have a little plaque. Maybe not as great as George Bush, but
Well, we're
George
bringing it home
Washington.
to- bringing it home to
Washington burped
GW.
here. Yes,
We're bringing it home to GW. All right, this is riveting news.
Yeah. So other things in Ohio. Yesterday, it was Tuesday. Governor DeWine and the Ohio Tax Credit Authority announced $835 million, if you will, taxpayer investment, like we just did in Intel, and that blew up, in 6 companies in order to create a total of 699 jobs. And what it is, it's a 7-year deal for each of these 6 companies of between 1.2 and 1.8% income tax credit, which adds up to $835 million for all 6. And that is, to give this deal is a little tighter because they do audit the results of whether the jobs are created and for how long. But my basic problem with this is, okay, it's a little better than the Intel thing, but it's, again, the government picking winners and losers. So like these 6 companies, what they are, for example, is a trucking company. One is a Swiss-owned company that does refrigeration for pharmaceuticals. One is a building materials manufacturing company. One is Kimberly-Clark that makes, everything from toilet paper to tampons and whatever. One is an architectural firm that's leasing additional space. So those are examples of, these companies. And what I would say is like, okay, these companies had somebody on the ball to write for this grant and to get into this program. But what if you're a mom and pop and you don't have the extra employee help or a CPA, or somebody to do this for you? It bothers me that a trucking company is going to get some kind of treatment that all the other trucking companies in Ohio are not going to get. And like, how is that fair?
Yeah.
And how is that a good use? So you and I are subsidizing this deal because obviously our income taxes will have to make up for the $835 million, which is almost $1 billion, right? That is being spent on these 6 companies in effect, because we're not going to collect the tax from them. So in effect, we're making up the difference with our taxes.
Yeah.
How's that right?
Yeah.
It's not right.
It's not
It's
right.
all just political theater. That's all this is.
Yeah.
Look good. Look good. Somebody's paying. Look, there's a certain amount to be paid, generally speaking.
Yeah.
So they're going to collect it somehow, somewhere, some way. Whether they call it this or call it that, somebody's paying for everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There is no free lunch.
I
There's no free
guess it comes back to the question, what is the government's role in our lives?
Yeah.
Is this their role
Yeah.
to help bring in business?
I don't have my
I
calculator
don't know.
handy. But even
it's
as
just a general question of us to think about. What do we want them to do?
Well, Brett, even like if you do the math, like take 699 jobs, divide that into 835 million, and then divide that by 7, so you get the per year amount. It just can't be worth it to me. Like,
well, look, the government has tried,
even as a purchase,
and tried. You have such a great point there, Brett, because the government has tried and tried and tried to manipulate the invisible hand in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
By putting its thumb on the scale.
Yeah.
And it never works. It doesn't work.
No.
It always creates a disruption in the force.
Yeah.
Right. So there's this, like it works. I mean, ironically, as I read George Washington's inaugural address, here's what he says. No people can be bound to acknowledge and adore the invisible hand, which conducts the affairs of men more than the people of the United States. Every step by which they have advanced to the character of an independent nation seems to have been distinguished by some token of providential agency. I mean, he's saying, look, I think he's talking about something other than the invisible hand of economics, but the invisible hand, like the market works, and you can't force it.
Right.
And usually there's always a consequence to that.
Well, when my dad, famously, I talk about my dad too much, I can't help it. But when my dad was in the state legislature, famously, Governor Rhodes, did the big deal with Honda to bring them, right? And immediately Ford, GM, and Chrysler said, well, what about me, right? I mean, immediately when Honda got all the largesse, the companies that were already in Ohio building cars or making parts for cars were like, well, what about me?
Yeah, you can't give this to that or not to me. You got an equal protection problem. It's like, listen, and this is what we're fighting, something similar in this DEI front right now, where we want to give to some but not others.
Yeah.
And it's those distinctions. You can always come up with a reason that your group, your class, the people you champion should get it.
Yeah.
But so can the other side.
Right.
And then the person doling it out has a problem.
Right.
And then if you dole it out equally to everybody, well, then since everybody has it, it's no advantage at all. So it's, just stay out.
Well, speaking of DEI, also in Ohio, down in Athens, Ohio University is going to comply with the DEI law passed in Senate Bill 1, and also the Trump order about accreditors, the people who certify that a university is accredited. He ordered them to stop applying DEI requirements. So forthwith, other than the military assistance offices, all of the, like the women's studies and the transgender studies and the gay student offices and all of this DEI stuff at Ohio University, which is probably the most liberal of all the state universities in Ohio, down in Appalachian country. I think the name of the president is Mr. Chavez, and he announced, we're closing all that down. We're complying.
Good.
So, good.
Yeah,
right?
good.
Because as the Harvard case proved to the U.S. Supreme Court, Asian students and white students, whether they're male or female, are just as entitled to the opportunities as anybody else of a different color. Like that's how can, it's the old Thomas Sowell, Clarence Thomas thing, where how can you correct racial intolerance by injecting racial intolerance?
You can't, right? It's another version of tipping the scales. You can't do it. And there's an ebb and flow to this, and thankfully it's ebbing.
Well, we gave 50 years of affirmative action. Like, when is enough enough, right? Like we did that. That is a historical fact. Many people, some people say Clarence Thomas, for example, and Obama got a hand up through for affirmative action. They probably did. Okay. But Obama got elected president by an overwhelming majority of white voters.
Mhm.
Like, so when is racial bias? When are we going to finally say,
well, look,
Yeah.
forget about, not forget about that, but think of it from a different angle. I think anybody would agree that there's racism in this country. There's racism in all of human affairs. It's always been that way.
and always will be?
And so when people say, well, when I argue with people, I even fall into this trap that I'm going to lay out here in a second, which is people say, yeah, but there's still racist people and there's still this, there's still that. But the position that I take is not to disagree with that.
Right.
It is to say, or ask rather, what is the government going to do about it?
That's exactly right.
And what power are you going to give the government to try to fix this?
Right.
And since when, in the course of human events throughout history of time, has the government been able to control how I think or anybody else thinks?
Well, Steve, to answer your question, right?
Mhm.
Cro-Magnon human remains have been found intermixed with Neanderthal, and they fought each other. And
Mhm.
clearly it was a race war.
Yeah.
I mean, it's been going on for
Well, something was going on. So look,
Yeah.
but the government can't stop it.
No.
They can't stop it. So
No.
like this is the flaw in the logic from my perspective. And there people might disagree with me, but you can give the government all the power in the world. So I remember I think it was one of the Ivy law professors from a law school
Yes.
or from an Ivy League law school was saying, look, the Constitution, the First Amendment, this is all getting in the way because with this process, we don't have enough power to fix racism, global warming,
Right.
all the other inequities, and they had a whole laundry list. And
create
the
utopia.
premise was so absurd.
Yeah.
One, that all those problems existed. So, they certainly didn't exist on the level that this guy was advocating. So whether they exist or not, maybe.
Yeah.
Two, he could fix it.
Yeah. That's
Right.
that's the absurdity.
If only
Right.
you ordain these people with all the power, they're going to fix it somehow.
Give me a free hand, I'll fix this.
I'll fix
And
it.
you're
I'll
like,
fix
what?
global warming. It's like what and how.
Yeah. Well, and it stops the conversation. To me, my perspective, it stops the conversation in two questions to be asked. It's that, okay, it's not what's wrong with you as asking a racist person. What's wrong with you? You're racist. It's like, what happened to you
Mhm.
to become racist?
For sure.
That's the question.
And most people are taught it.
Right. And this overreaching, powerful hand of government law stops us from having this conversation.
You don't have in fact, it squelches it. You're right. It stops in its tracks. I mean, there's not it's almost racist to have that conversation by their measures.
And I got to be a part of an interview with a person who was in the DEI space for the past 20 years. And it's interesting from her perspective. And I have to go with what she says is how DEI started and now where it is today. It's totally
place.
changed because she said initially DEI 20 odd years
wasn't
ago.
Called DEI
it
either.
wasn't,
Yeah.
no, but it's that welcoming and understanding everybody has problems.
Yeah.
And how can you work with them in your workplace?
Right.
And it could be handicap.
Yeah.
It could be anything,
Right.
that sort of thing, orphaned or I don't whatever you want to.
Absolutely.
The problem and recognizing them and then walking them into the workspace and help them do the best job that
Sure.
they can.
Hearing
And
impaired, all kinds of issues.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or blind, whatever it might be.
Exactly.
And those are the extremes to a certain
Right,
degree.
right.
But now we've turned it in. DEI's turned into this weaponized. You will learn that you have to incorporate these people in. It's like,
Or you're a
can we
bad
go
person
back
because
20
you were
years?
born of a certain skin
Exactly.
color.
It's like,
or you
stop
have
that.
you don't even know how bad you are because you can't see the water you're swimming in.
right.
So what I'm
So-
concerned about, Brett and I had a really interesting discussion a couple of weeks ago, and what I am concerned about is like the new DEI, and I hope it doesn't mutate into this. And we talked about the campus. So I hate these speech codes on campus. It's poison. And what I'm afraid of is in its zeal to protect Jewish students, whom I want to be protected, absolutely against any violence or threats of violence. But I am concerned on the campus of Harvard, Yale, Princeton, these liberal places that are so pro-Hamas and pro-Palestine. I'm concerned that the Trump kind of effect will prevent people from expressing, if they wish, like even though I find it detestable, for them to express their hatred of Jews. If that's what they want to talk about,
they should be able to.
They should be able to. Now, do I like it? No, I don't.
This is why.
But they should be able to be free. Now, not necessarily illegal immigrants, because they're stirring up stuff.
Look, there's always a limit.
There's a limit.
Right.
But if an anti-Semitic group
applies for a permit,
gets a permit
and parades,
and wants to parade around and talk about how horrible and call Jews termites and all the tropes that they use.
The KKK.
Like, they have a right to do it.
They have a right to do that.
Just like I have a right to do the opposite.
And I'm concerned that, like, when the White House talks about taking away, I mean, Harvard shouldn't be getting $9 billion, but when they talk about disenfranchising them from doing business with the federal government because people are speaking horrible things on campus.
Suppressing speech is suppressing speech is suppressing
that's
speech.
That's right. And I am concerned about that. Like, they should not go too far with this.
Well,
that's what I'm saying.
The backlash. And look, I guess related to DEI and some of these measures is I think it's worth at least talking a little bit about the legalities of, I think there's an executive order Trump signed, or at least is about to sign, that has eliminated or will eliminate what the law calls disparate impact proof of discrimination.
Yeah.
So disparate, like if I'm discriminating,
which LBJ originally did.
Well, it came on the heels of Title VII. So I think.
Yeah.
So
1968, I think.
You have, if I discriminate, if I'm the government, because we'll take it out of private for now, and Title VII would apply to private. But let's just say somebody is discriminating against an employee, and I say I don't hire black people, I don't hire Jewish people, I don't hire norms of the world because I don't like race car drivers, whatever it is. If it's a protected class, then that's obvious because I have said it out loud.
Right.
But then it gets dicey. The law created this disparate impact type of evidence that would go through like a statistical analysis of how a policy at my business could impact somebody of a protected class differently. And the idea was to protect against me masquerading or under the guise of a policy, creating racist policies. So I could say, look, I only hire people from this neighborhood. Well, we know that there are only white people in that neighborhood and no black people in that neighborhood.
Right.
So that would be like, that's a disparate impact.
So we're going to look into your actions and impute an intent.
And sometimes you can, sometimes you can't.
Yeah.
But like all these things, it was designed, but the design of it or the stated purpose of it is not necessarily what happened. So now you have disparate impact. So you're creating racism and discrimination where it doesn't exist.
Right.
And these means of proof get real squirrely and dicey, and the lawyers go crazy over it. Yeah. So I look, good, bad, or ugly, I think there's going to be an executive order or has been an executive order eliminating that. Now, what I don't know is whether Trump has the authority as an executive to sign an order getting rid of that.
Well,
so Congress is going to have to act.
LBJ signed it to bring it in.
I don't know if he signed it as an executive order or if he signed it as a
fair enough. Yeah.
As a congressional act. So I don't know enough about it, but it's interesting. It shows you the backlash that's coming.
So if you want to hire people on the basis of merit, which is not only moral, but it's also the smart business thing, right? Like, I don't care if somebody's purple, if they're a woman, if they're a trans, if they're gay, if they are the best mathematician and I'm running a nuclear power plant and I'm hiring engineers, I'm hiring the best based on merit. I could care less who they sleep with or what color they are.
And then it's gone so far as to like the cake bakers. And I used to have this debate upstairs in the law practice. Not that I did it, but let's just say I would internally we would have these discussions. Debate's not even the right word. It'd be like, should the government be able to prevent me from saying outwardly, I don't represent people of a certain race. I don't represent gay people. I don't represent black people. I only represent white Aryans with German heritage.
Okay.
I am a Nazi. And I only represent those people.
I'm a Nazi lawyer.
I'm a Nazi lawyer. That's all I do. Or you could flip it around. I only represent Jews. I only represent people of a certain type. And, they're like a knee jerk from the public is generally, you shouldn't be able to do that.
Right.
And then you start to think like, all right, I'm providing a service. Do you think that if the government says I have to do it, one, that I will comply, and two, if I do comply, you think they're getting the same service that I would give everybody else?
Exactly.
I mean, isn't that dangerous? Think of the unintended consequences
of that.
Is, right. And it just shows like what sounds good doesn't always result in good.
Right.
When it's applied.
And multiple layers there too. So, okay, you're forcing me to serve this clientele. Well, that clientele's going to pay more.
Right. Or what if they
so,
don't
So
pay?
then another law comes into place. Like you have to charge them the same. And another piece.
Or do a worse job.
And then how do you decide, since you, Brett, are of a certain skin color and you, Norm, are of a certain ethnic origin, but I charge you more for seemingly the same case, but maybe there's a nuance there that maybe you're a bigger pain in the ass.
Exactly.
And you bug me more, so I charge you more.
Right.
You take more of my time, in other words.
Yeah.
Pain in the ass isn't the right word.
Right,
but you take more of my time.
Right.
So you have to pay more. But if you look at the disparate impact of that, then it looks discriminatory.
Sure it does.
Mm-hmm.
Or if I just say, look, I'm not going to represent the solution is obvious to me. If I'm not going to represent people of a certain color, well then another enterprising young lawyer, I'm going to look at that and say, I'm going to lease space right next door to this asshole, and I'm going to take all comers.
Why do you think car dealerships place each other right next to each other?
Right.
It's because they're shopping.
This idiot is going to cut out a business source of clientele because he's a racist lunatic. Fine,
I'll take them.
Have at it.
Exactly.
Or if they have
get stamped out of existence,
or if they have like a legitimate, and I don't mean legitimate to you, but legitimate to them. So if they have sincere religious beliefs about like gay marriage, right? And so the cake maker doesn't want to make gay marriage cakes.
Right.
That's an opportunity for a gay marriage cake baker to go into that business.
And look, and it makes
Fill
perfect
the
sense.
need.
It makes perfect sense. And lawyers have I've had a conflict of interest emerge in my practice recently, not my practice, but I was analyzing a case, and a lawyer had an interest in the case.
Okay. Yeah.
A personal interest in the case or in something going on in the case outside the representation. I won't go into detail, but outside the representation.
Okay.
We had an ethics expert come in and he said, look, it's a two-step analysis. The first thing we have to do as lawyers is assess, how does this impact my ability to represent this guy? And if I think that it has any impact at all, then I have to bail. I can't do it.
Okay.
Even if I think it doesn't have any impact, I have to notify my client and get a waiver written in writing and get a waiver. So look, I mean, if you're going to say that I have to represent gay people as a lawyer and I don't agree with that lifestyle, then I will do that analysis, but I'm not going to tell you. And it's like, you're going to squelch it. You're going to drive it underground. But if you create the competition, you're going to, the logical foul is, I think I've talked about last week even, it's called reductio ad absurdum. You reduce the logic to its own absurdity. It's stupid.
Yeah.
It's dumb.
You're driving away business.
I'll represent Mangione. I'll represent Norm. I'll represent Brett. I'll represent somebody innocent. I'll represent somebody guilty.
Yeah.
And if I can't, I won't.
Yeah.
So, there was a time I love dogs. If somebody's if animal cruelty case, I get sort of squirrely about it.
Yeah.
I don't like it.
Probably not take that kind of a case.
Sometimes I've had to say, look, man, I'm not your guy.
Yeah. Right.
Go over here.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what you would want.
And that's,
right.
yes.
That's what you would want. And you're discouraging it.
And we were speaking about judges earlier, and like Steve talks about lawyers, judges also recuse themselves.
Yep.
If they happen to have a relationship with one of the parties,
they got to get out, right?
Yeah,
so, but if you're not going to permit that kind of thing, then you're not going to encourage people to disclose those kind of problems, and it doesn't change the problem; it just drives it underground.
Yeah.
So, look, we're getting towards the hour. We should probably talk about how many weeks it's been, how many days it's been, how many hours it's been, because in the end of the day, it's still 100 days of Donald Trump. Mm-hmm. And this will be a good segue into things that we like and hate.
Yeah,
when is the official 100 day?
It was yesterday.
It was yesterday. Okay,
yeah.
I missed it.
100 days, okay. Right? So
and
how about
they
that?
actually put out a video. The White House did.
Okay,
yeah,
good for them.
Like a little movie.
It's gotten so.
It's all production.
It's just gotten so foolish. Everything's just gotten foolish.
Yeah.
Well, did you see where they put up all the posters of the illegal immigrants that were wanted for violent crimes? They put them all over the White House lawn. So that even when CNN or MSNBC, which, they all hate Trump, when the reporters are doing White House updates, all these big posters are in the background.
It's just, and I guess Trump, as Trump done, put up signs.
He trolls these people so badly. I mean, he's killing them. He hasn't gone to a White House correspondents' dinner ever. And it's like, I'm not going to give you me so you could stick your spears in my side.
Yet he does it day in and day out. I mean, it's like he never gets enough credit, I think, for this. Like him or hate him, he never gets enough credit for saying, look, I'm here every day for a press conference. Ask me whatever the hell you want.
Right.
And you may not like my answers, but maybe it's not every day, but like after 4 years of Biden, who never had a press conference.
No. Yeah. This guy does 2 hours every day.
He's signing orders saying, here, what do you think of that?
What do you think of that?
This is the most bestest possible, greatest order of all time.
You back there, that's fake news. You're fake news. Like he goes into these debates with people right to them.
Right.
It's unreal.
It's so love it or hate it. It's at least interesting.
It's sure. So, okay. So I think we do good things, bad things about his 100 days.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea, Steve. Yeah. So I will just say the one thing, because I have so many, the one thing that just blows me away is at the peak of Biden, there were 300,000, like 10,000 a day, 300,000 a month illegals either gotaways or released into the country given a hearing date that they'll never show up for, right? Under Trump last month, it was 9 people. 9 people, illegals, were released into the country and given a date.
Yeah.
As opposed to 300,000.
Well, and then how many people crossing? I mean, look, it's
unbelievable. And Biden the whole time was saying,
I can't do it.
I don't have power from Congress.
It's the Republican because they blocked my bill.
Yeah. There was no bill needed. No. There was just a new president that was needed.
Well, and Trump was right about that. So
yeah.
So that's my good thing. My bad thing is that under the tariff thing, it's kind of a good thing, but like all of the Kroger, like people don't read the label. But if you read the label on all of Kroger's produce, canned produce, under the Kroger label, all of it, every bit of it, whether it's mandarin oranges, peaches, pears, cherries, it's all from China. And because of the 145% tariff, right, those cans are now going to greatly exceed American-made canned produce like from Del Monte. So is that a bad thing? Hey, I'm willing to pay more for American safe produce than I am for Chinese produce. So that's my bad thing.
Gotcha. I guess the only thing, I'm not going to go good or bad, but it's just a head scratcher to me is the number of executive orders that he did put in place. But then his comment, and I caught this a couple of days ago, 10 years ago, 2015, 2016, of just saying that when you've got the people in power, you don't need executive orders.
Yeah. Look,
so I guess I don't think it's just when you've got the power, you've got the votes. Why are you doing executive order? He was downplaying at that point in time. So why now is it the flavor of the day?
It is.
So I don't know. It just,
I agree.
It's a head scratcher on me. And I guess also we talked about this before we started recording too. The Canada scenario situation, it bothers me.
Yeah,
and I'm not a Canada lover. I don't mean that. But I was always under the impression we had a pretty good neighbor, and now we're kind of poking it. So, but it'll all come out. It will, because we're very
well.
We as people will get along.
Fascist,
it's just politics.
Brett,
Well, and so
Trudeau was a fascist.
The new guy is the I forget his name.
Yeah. I mean, look what they did to Jordan Peterson under Trudeau. But look what they did to the truckers who were,
and they elected another guy. A little bit uglier.
So I don't know. Canada's been out of control for a long time. They're not a warm, fuzzy place.
Yeah,
that's my opinion.
Well, I agree with you, Brett, on the executive orders. I think that's one of the reasons I led with GW, George Washington, because he in his inaugural speech emphasized the importance of the Constitution and importance of Congress, et cetera. And that's not to blame. That's not to say Trump is violating all of it. It's just our country has gotten to a place where Congress does nothing, essentially nothing. They have one big omnibus bill, which Trump better pass that, by the way, I think.
It's not up to him to pass it.
Was it the big, gorgeous, beautiful spending? They better get that through. Anyway.
Yeah. May the 4th, I think, is the...
Yeah, they got it.
Isn't it? Or is it June the 4th? Is a deadline?
I don't know.
No, it's because they're hoping to get it done by Labor Day, so it's got to be in June.
Yeah.
But anyway, we've shifted to this world where executive orders and administrative agencies govern our country, and I don't like it. And if we're going to reset anything, let's do that. Now, Trump did some of that, but that sort of petered out. In the Doge stuff has sort of petered out, and some of that's petered out. And,
because they have to pass laws.
And
the Doge stuff will not be permanent. They got to pass the laws.
Is the Doge that goes away in another month, right? Was it 100
I think that had
more
a fuse
days
on
or
it,
so?
Well, the Doge department was actually created by Obama, so I think it will continue.
It was created for anyway. Yes.
Yeah.
So it was created to cut costs.
He had this IT thing going. I get you.
Yeah.
And Trump just said, "We'll just use that." And turn
That's
it into
right.
Doge, right?
Yep.
So I think I agree with you on the executive orders. They are too much, but it's not just Trump. I mean, this started Obama after his first term said, in his first term said, look, I can't do anything. I have Congress. I have to respect that. And then as soon as he realized he didn't have Congress anymore, he goes, well, I can do it with my phone and my pen.
Right.
And, then it's sort of this escalation of executive orders.
Well, to
Trump has
undo
driven
Obama and Biden, you have to use executive orders because they use stuff.
It's a seesaw now.
So on Trump's very first day in office, 26 executive orders.
And Biden did the same thing. And, it's just this seesaw. So
right. We need to pass laws. That's what
Congress needs to go back. I think where they work like 14 weeks a year.
Yeah, it's ridiculous.
So
and they get paid pretty good jack now.
They get paid,
come on, guys.
And anyway, so that's I'm with you on that. I guess my good with Trump is that sort of like you, Norm, he has stopped immigration in its tracks. He got off to a great start, I think, with some of the executive orders, rescinding a lot of this other stuff. And he also got off to a great start, I think, with this idea that look, we're gonna let the people govern this.
Yeah.
And, we're gonna have this transparency, et cetera. But then the tariffs came along, and I think whether you agree with tariffs or don't agree with tariffs, it seems like Trump's sort of leaning towards this. Tariffs are going to replace income tax, which I think is there's no way that's ever going to happen.
No, it's not going to happen.
And it's not even a real. It's not even. It's. I don't want to call it laughable, but it's like I don't know if he really believes that. But
the country did operate that way
it did, but the world has changed.
Yeah, I understand that, but I mean, the
world has changed.
It's as preposterous as saying we can buy Greenland. It is theoretically possible. Yes, the world has changed, but we always were a commerce country.
I get it, but I don't think we're going to get rid of income tax.
No,
and
I don't
replace
think so.
it with tariffs.
Right.
And we're treading on, I think Trump's treading on dangerous waters, not necessarily about the tariff policy, but for the lack of a tariff policy. He's not telling anybody what his goal is. So look, like to your point, Brett,
he's being very flexible.
If he would have said to Canada, look, you guys are tariffing our farm products or our products, get rid of that or we'll tariff yours.
Well, he did have that. Trudeau went down to Mar-a-Lago. They had a conversation,
I get it, but then
Canada didn't do it.
But the messaging has gotten out of whack. People don't understand it. And you can say, look, that's the market's problem or this or that, but Trump's not messaging it right either.
I would disagree about the flexibility. So just yesterday, for example, Brett and I were talking about how you are stacking tariffs unfairly on things that move across the border, say 12 times to make a car between Detroit and Windsor, Ontario. And the steel, aluminum, engines, rear axles, tires, stuff going back and forth across the border 11 times, and then theoretically getting tariffed each time it goes across.
Sure, so get rid of them all.
They got rid of that yesterday. So Trump, his credit, is listening to people and he is being flexible.
Look, I'm not disagreeing.
Just changed that.
So I think
yesterday.
maybe two things are happening. One, Trump's messaging is, as it always is like this sort of superlative, a little bit bombastic, like almost like I know and you don't. That's the first problem. The second problem is
you call it a problem. Scott Bessent, who's Secretary of the Treasury, calls it strategic.
Maybe wishful thinking, but
I think it's working.
Well, maybe. But the second problem is
Merck is moving from Ireland to the U.S. to make drugs.
The media is not interested in hearing any sort of coherent policy. They love making it chaos. So I think both those things are operating at the same time to create this chaos.
Of course.
So anyway, that's my problem. That's my problem.
Yeah.
And I think looming out there, we have a China problem. And that is, I'm not saying Trump is screwing that up or doing well with it. I think it's just something that we need to keep our eyes on that because that's coming and it's coming right quick, as they say. So anyway, that's what I love and hate.
Dude.
All right.
Awesome.
All right. So anyway, Common Sense Ohio.
Guys, I love the fact that we all think individually we're different people. And I love this.
Yeah, I hate you for it.
This is what makes our show beautiful.
I learn something every day. Every week.
We are not rubber stampers. Like when Steve says something and it's brilliant, I don't necessarily rubber stamp it, nor does he do that with Brett or me. This is what we need is open, like no, what do they call it on
A
campus?
no judgment zone kind of
Open
feel to it.
discourse.
Just
this
talk.
is freedom of speech, right?
Freedom
here.
of speech,
and
man.
really go into the conversation knowing that you're not going to change that person's mind.
Right.
No, you're going to learn something.
That's not the purpose of the conversation. And I
That's
think a
right.
lot of conversations in my family specifically is that they don't want to have the conversation because, well, you're not going to change my mind. That is what they say. It's like, that's not why we're talking.
That's
I
very
don't want-
close-minded.
I don't
The
want to
opposite
change
is
your
true.
mind.
I want to learn from you. I don't want to change your mind.
Right.
Exactly. Allow
Right.
me to understand
Right.
where you're coming from for
Right.
this. And
Tell
it
me.
stops it.
Right.
You know? Yeah.
Anyway,
And-
so that's the
yeah.
idea of Common Sense Ohio, is to bring a common sense dose of reality right
Yeah.
here to the roundtable at 511. You can check us out at commonsenseohioshow.com. We're on all the socials. We're streaming live weekly. Leave a comment, send us a question, do whatever. Normal, take you on. He's happy to, anytime, anywhere, in public even. If you want to be a guest or you want to be a sponsor, you know how to find us. commonsenseohioshow.com. Coming at you Wednesday in and Wednesday out right from the middle.